Senate Bill 1303, which together, along with that guidance, leads one to believe that it is now a matter of lawful or legal matters for wearing mask indoors. With that being said, I was obviously, because again, CDC has the expertise in science with COVID. There's attorneys out there who have expertise with the law, and of course, Senate Bill 1303 was something that was created, I believe, in March of 2020. Understanding all of that, I contacted the board attorney, and essentially, yes, there has been some level of confusion and perhaps even frustration among legal communities, scientific communities, et cetera, et cetera. But it's essentially what it says is that the CDC website said the following was changed on August the 4th, and that was update to recommend universal indoor masking for all students, staff, teachers, and visitors, K-12 students, schools, regardless of vaccination status. And then added another bullet that said added recommendation for fully vaccinated people who have a known exposure to someone with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 to be tested 3 to 5 days after exposure, regardless of whether they have symptoms. Now, the first bullet is obviously the one with controversy, but right now, we have been guided to, in our reopening plans, to adopt the universal indoor masking until CDC eases the mask guidance. And that's essentially what came up. So finding that out, obviously, I contacted my board, and here we are, because we had passed a resolution saying otherwise. And that's pretty much the presentation.
Okay. Comments from the board?
Although it's my resolution, I strongly support it. I know my board, and I don't think my board is going to do something that any way you look at it has to be a violation of Virginia law. So I think we need to take some action today. I have a motion that I will present when the time comes, but I do think we're going to have to do something today.
I was trying to understand why my opinion as someone that does have some power in making this decision appears to be different from people that I know, and I know very well that they are very concerned parents. And the only thing that came to me was that you as a parent are concerned about your child, as that is what parents are supposed to do. But I am, as a school board member, I'm concerned about 5,000 children. And odds are, so, we're looking at some odds are, the parent is correct, the odds of their child getting sick is fairly low. But the odds of several people out of 5,000 getting sick and truly having, really bad consequences from this decision, I still, looking at what is best for a large group, I still think that the mask, I believe, and that masks are very useful in limiting and controlling this disease. And I really think that might be one of the major issues here. If you don't believe masks help, obviously, why would you make people wear them? If you believe they do help and prevent disease and consequences that nobody would want, I mean, that's just a personal belief.
Good morning. I think everybody would be comfortable knowing that we have experienced COVID fatigue. I think we've overdosed. let's go back down in time and remember what we were told. And I'm not saying that all I'm doing is just giving you a quick history lesson. The thought is just don't lie to us. That's what people think. We're sensible, we're educated Americans. I think we have to weigh the evidence for ourselves, because the CDC, laying this guidance out, also told us at one time that masks were not needed. And their prerogative was, well, we're not going to need them because we don't want to run on the equipment and supply chain to allow our first responders, which is, I'm one of them, to be short on equipment. If they would have said that to start with, I think that would have probably lent them some credibility, but they failed. Then it was, if you get the vaccine, which I did, then you'll never have to worry again, it'll be fine. Well, what we haven't addressed is two things that are really of interest to me, is where did this come from? Dr. Fauci said he had an open mind to it, but an open mind also followed up with, well, I believe it originated in nature, not in a lab. That doesn't sound like it's an open mind. Legislation, Senate Bill 1303, was strictly opposed by the School Board Association, or rather, the VEA and the NEA. They did not want to return to school. But Senator Donovan was able to push the legislation through and get bipartisan support. And she did add that it would be contingent upon CDC guidelines. It's written clearly in the statute. My feeling is this, is that I don't like wearing a mask. I've probably had COVID. I don't know. When everyone was locked down with my work, I was called out. And I never had the symptoms that said you shouldn't go back to work. I don't know if I have the natural antibodies or not, but I do have the vaccine. So we're not here to discuss that. What we're here to discuss is legal counsel's opinion, is that if we do not act as the statute requires, then we're in violation of the law. And with my professional career, it puts me in a pickle. What do I do? You know, I'm at the end of my career. It's a terrible fate to think that you have to be put like this, that we've created a civil war with China's help. But if it means wearing a mask to get our kids back into school where they need to be so that we can be an educated society, then that's what we need to do. I don't like it. There's a lot of things in life that I've experienced that I didn't like, but I had to do. That's all I gotta say.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. It's very much appreciated. I would like to, well, first of all, I would like to address the table that was presented, the community transmission table, based on, and we don't have it up here, but based on that table, through July 29th and August 4th, in Orange County, they say we have 33 cases out of 100,000 people. Now, I've done a little bit of math, some basic percentages. That comes out to 0.033%, or 0.03% of people out of 100,000 people. That is a really small number to me, dang near insignificant. Let's also consider that the governor stated as of June 21st, 70% of Virginians had received at least one dose of the vaccine. Now, that was about 6 weeks ago, so those people that have had at least one dose have had an opportunity to have two, if that is their choice. Also, I would like you to include in your thoughts about those the number of individuals that are COVID recovered and have natural immunity. We know COVID has gone through this country. People have had it. We have natural immunity. this is not being talked about scientifically, which I extremely question the motives as to why, but I think that it should be considered. I will not be motivated by fear. I am just not that kind of an individual. I support common sense policy. I 100% support allowing parents to choose. And if, something that we have not discussed, I know that this is something that they're doing in Spotsylvania County. They have created an opt-out form for parents so that if they do not want their children to wear a mask, then they just opt out. And I think that that is something that we should consider. I do ask that this board consider common sense protocols. If you're sick, stay home, just like we've always done. We used to have a precedent. You have a fever, you stay home. Once it's been 24 hours, the fever's gone. You go back to school, you go back to work. What's changed? Really, what's changed? So, I personally do not support a mask mandate. I will not support a mask mandate. I support our individual rights to choose and the parents to make the decision for their own children. Thank you.
We're at a time right now that somebody's going to be unhappy. And I'd like to ask, everybody sitting in this auditorium, have you been directly affected with someone that's passed away with COVID?
Yes.
Have you?
Of course.
So have I. It's not fun and it's not pleasant. My thing is whether I agree with the mask or not mask, as an elected official and going by Virginia law, we have to follow this, whether we like it or not. And I will caution this board, if you go against what the Virginia law has stated and our legal representation, you're standing out on your own. And that means if something happens, you will not be covered by our council, our school board council. So if you go out and stand on your own, you will not have an attorney on this board that will represent you. We have talked with our attorney. He has advised against it. He said you are in violation. We even went as far as to ask about the opting out of mask. He says it doesn't fly. It doesn't. But what I will caution you against too is everybody has seemed to have forgotten we don't control contact tracing. If we have to continue, and we do have to continue contact tracing, you put a student in a classroom that has tested, or a teacher in a classroom that has tested, you've potentially taken out that whole class or another class. So whether you want to or not, we're looking at facing at potentially closing down a whole building for at least 2 weeks, if not longer. So I will caution you again against that. And I will say again, if we can get our kids back in school safely, wear the mask. Wear the mask. That's all I have to say. But again, I will reiterate from our school board attorney, you're standing out on your own. You will not have representation from the board, and you're going directly against Virginia law. So. And remind again that you still have to contact trace. It is my job as chairman to make sure all the facts are there, that this board understands all the legal ramifications of what we're faced with. That is part of my job. So, I'll end it on that. And I don't know if Dr. Sneed has anything he'd like to add to that.
Well, just the same comments really as I made last week. You know, every day we should get up out of bed and not look at ourselves so much, but perhaps see what's the best decisions that we can make during the day that are going to benefit and support those around us. And then it becomes very clear. If I am not putting myself up on a pedestal, but if I'm out to serve and serve others, that's how it's taught. And we're in this uncertain time. Nobody really knows too much about COVID-19. We see the possible results. We see people are sick. We see hospitals increase their patient rooms. We see all of these. We see mortality. So whether or not there are these control issues on either side of the argument, I think if we come together and really just say, you know, what are my decisions today going to be to help others, which is essentially the gold standard for my whole career, then knowing what people know that are better experts at it than I, surely I come at this from a very humble perspective, then it would make sense if face coverings, if COVID-19 is highly transmissible through aerosols, if that's true. And if the R naught value for this current Delta strand is 5 to 9, which means I can infect 5 to 9 people, and it was 2 to 3 with the original COVID, if all that's true, then my position to try to help other people with all the information that's been given, regardless of what my personal feelings are, I think character, strong character, is having the ability to put aside those personal feelings and to do what's best. Because see, if leadership was easy, everyone would do it in the light. And I'm doing it in the light right now. So you can be happy about that, or sad, or angry. That's certainly your choice, because that's obviously where we are as a community or society, sadly enough. But mine is to err on caring for all children. Always will be. And so if all the data is true, that's our guidance. And we have a pre-K to age 12 population who has no access to a vaccine. And all of this is true. Then without anger in my heart, but with love in my heart, I say we support our children and we love on them. And we quit modeling as adults this bitterness, this anger, and these hypotheses that we think we have. And we come together for the children. Because honestly, that's why I'm here. It's not for a political statement. It's not to make it popular, obviously. I know what that choice would be for some. So, those are my statements. I will always love children. I'm always there on the side of our children. They need to be in school. I know no other way to put our children in school than to take the proper mitigation standards. Madam Chair, members of the board, those are my comments. You know, that's who I am.
So at this time, I'd entertain your motion to going back in school with the mask on.
Mr. Hopkins had, did you have something you wanted to?
You know, I had a motion here which as I stated very in the beginning, I think our resolution is in violation of not CDC law or health law or anything. It's in violation of a law passed by the General Assembly, and we have to abide by that. But I think I have a motion that is in middle ground and will comply with 1303. If Madam Chairman will let me, I'll at least present it.
Yes, sir.
My board members haven't seen this, so but I'll read it for the audience while they're taking a look at it. It says, to comply with Senate Bill 1303, the Orange County Public Schools will adhere to the Federal Center for Disease Control and Prevention's guidance to the maximum extent practicable. Still, if masks interfere with instructions in the teacher's judgment, wearing masks in the classroom may be optional.
One question we didn't address, we do need to give latitude. It's really ambiguous. One of the things that was brought to my attention was, what about band and chorus? We have some latitude that at teacher's discretion. I know in my my professional career, there's times where there's the letter and the spirit of the law, and sometimes we have to use latitude and make the best judgment calls. And
Our health committee is reviewing all those nuances and solutions. Not all the answers. If we could answer all the questions today, this job would be so much easier, but we can't. So what we're going to do is we're going to grow through the decisions as they present themselves. So my apologies, Mr. Jones, we do not have a solid, fast answer, but I will say this, the health committee, that's at the top of their list, and we've had some discussions and some ideas, so thank you.
Well, Mr. Hopkins,
Could I get a second to my motion, or it's off the table?
I second your motion.
Now discussion on the motion.
the only thing, Mr. Hopkins, I would love to say this is a grand thing, but I don't see it. I think it's gonna be still defeating the purpose of some. And if you have a teacher, or it's left up to a staff, depending on whether they are for the mask or against the mask, you're gonna create unequal divide in classrooms and buildings. You're gonna have, I think this is gonna create more problems than just being clear in our statement.
Well,
Because we do have face shields available to teachers and to students. So if that be the case, for covering, I just see this as sending a mixed message for teachers. Because if the teacher's not for masks, then she's gonna say you don't have to wear them. And if you have a teacher that is for masks, you're gonna have to do them her class. So what you're gonna have is kids being thrown back and forth class-wise in a decision.
I mean, it's still up to the student whether they want to wear the mask, and the teachers. I think we've gotten, and in a way, we've gotten too much into the health issue. An educational issue is just so it's dropped by the board. The CDC has no authority or no responsibility for educating these children.
Thank you.
Now, I didn't hear it, but it was reported that Dr. Fauci was on national TV just this weekend, and one of his statements was, yes, children are much less acceptable to this virus, but it's not zero. Now, if the goal is to get it to zero, we'll be wearing masks forever.
It's impossible. It's not happening.
I'd also echo that Mr. Poole and all the media needs to have an open, centered-minded approach to journalism. Sometimes it gets swayed one way or the other. We're the jury, and but again, there's been a lot of times in life where you've had to do things you didn't like to do, and I think if we lived across the state line, it would be a different set of circumstances. It just happened to live in Virginia, and we have to deal with the leadership that we have until we change it.
Well, I would like to say one thing. I have been keeping count of the people that have contacted me and their opinions, and what I've noticed is about 80% of the people that have contacted me want choice, want to make their own decisions about it. A smaller percentage want mandates, and one of the things about being on the board is our opinions are valued. The vote, of course, is collective. We are a board, so no one individual has any more say than others. Duly noted that if I support my constituents' feelings and my own personal feelings is the wrong word, my parents that want choice, my own personal opinion that I want choice, that I'm being hung out to dry. I heard that very well. So all of a sudden, it's no longer a board now, and I'm going to have to think about that. That's a personal thing. But again, just think about the numbers. 33 cases out of 100,000 people. What are we doing? All right, let's vote.
We've got two motions on the floor.
Right. So the first thing we have to do is either decide if you're going to vote for this or make a new motion to vote. So at this time, we're voting on this recommendation as to making masks optional, which I disagree with. This is the motion that Mr. Hopkins.
So that's the first motion.
This is the first motion, yes. So, roll call, Ms. Byron?
Ms. Couch?
No.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes?
Mr. Jones?
Abstain.
No.
Ms. Winter?
Abstain.
So we have 2 abstains, 2 noes, and 1 yes. So noes have it.
I mean, I like the idea of it. I don't think it should be the teacher's judgment. I think it should be the parents.
So I'll make a motion that we, in compliance with Virginia law and based on advice from our legal counsel, because while I love people and I love children, I'm not willing to go to jail for anybody. My motion is to follow the guidance of legal counsel and CDC and mask in school. That is my motion. And I have a second.
Second.
Roll call vote, Ms. Byron.
Discussion?
Huh? Oh, discussion? Oh, sorry, Ms. Byron.
I have nothing to say.
Stinker, aye. So, roll call vote, Ms. Byron.
Ms. Couch?
Aye.
Mr. Hopkins,
No.
Mr. Jones,
Abstain.
Ms. Page,
Aye.
Ms. Winter,
No. Nay.
So we again have yeses have it. No, that's 2 to 2. Okay. Oh, sorry, that's right. Okay, so it is a deadlock. So, anyone, so that motion fails.
But to go back to my motion, just because the teacher's making the decision of whether it's optional does not mean that the parents don't have a say, because if the teacher makes it optional, then the child has an option, and I'm assuming the child's going to do the option that the parents want them to do. So essentially, my motion would make you wear a mask going to school, in the hall, everything else. And if the teacher didn't feel that, it depends on what you're doing in the class. I was an instrumental music teacher. Trying to have a band class with people wearing masks is just ridiculous. So I can't believe that either you're going to keep the instruments in their cases, or else you're going to take a mask off. I mean, to blow an instrument even with a mask on your face, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But I was also a math teacher for 10 years, and the truth of the matter is, most of my classes, especially the advanced classes, were almost lecture classes almost every day. There really wasn't a whole lot of interaction with the students other than if they had a question or something. It was pretty much of a lecture class, and if I had to wear a mask, because most of the time I was looking over my shoulder at my class and writing on the board, because I didn't, at the time I was doing it, we didn't have these fancy things that you have now where you can look at the students and it still shows up on the board. But I'm just thinking practical. If I have to turn my back to the class and I have a mask on, how's a person in the back of the room going to have an idea of what I'm saying? So if it was just up to me where I was in the past and it was this decision, my decision might be that it's practical for me to take the mask off, but since the students don't have to talk, all they're doing is listening and writing, maybe that would be appropriate for them to keep the masks on. I'm just saying there's a lot of options, but when you talk about education, the teacher that's there in the room knows what needs to be done to get the instruction done. If the instruction's not going to be happening, then we're just making our school system into babysitters. The first thing, our first priority has to be education.
Well, at this time, we still don't know what some of that instruction is going to look like, because the guidance is still coming out. We don't know what our health plan looks like as of yet. And please, I'm looking, yes, go ahead.
I'll repeat the modification that I spoke of last week. And we have to remember, again, why the face coverings are recommended. They are one of many parts of mitigation strategies. So as mentioned last week, which I think is what maybe Mr. Jones and Mr. Hopkins were trying to get to, that is, since they are one piece of mitigation, if a child is in the classroom and there's a safe distance 3 to 6 feet and they're not immobile, they're not being mobile, they're not walking, as has been stated, then the students can and should take a mask break so that they don't have to have the mask on 100%. Absolutely, the recommendation is that, or the guidance suggests that the face covering should be worn to prevent the air spreading of aerosols. So when one is mobile, walking, etc., they expel their aerosols in the trail. So I guess that would be the idea of wearing face covering when you're moving. However, if you're not moving, if you're sitting here like this, the guidance suggests that students can take a mask break. I also believe, and not a belief, it's all through what we read, is that students in certain teachable moments aren't putting their teacher or others at risk if they are appropriately spaced. Now, with regard to choir and band, we are still, if the question is, are we still having those classes and courses? Absolutely, yes, we are. And we're going to provide our students with an experience, and no one, I don't think, has recommended to play an instrument with a mask. But there are other mitigation strategies. Since you take the mitigation strategy of the face covering away, then the other mitigation strategies come into play, whatever they might be. They could be a number of things. And so we have to think about the purpose of the face covering. It's a mitigation tool. And so I think if we think of it like that, then we could probably move through our day a little bit less uneasy, I hope. Thank you, Mrs. Page.
What Dr. Sneeds just said is very important, and I want folks that I know and that I trust and respect to know that his leadership is, by all means, has to be in the right guidance. I read the statute again, and I read the legal advice, and we don't have a choice. Okay, that's what it boils down to. We have some latitude, but I think somebody said God's always on time. 3 P's: patience, persistence, and politeness will win the day every time. Our goal is to get these children back into school. We want to do that. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We also know it could all change tomorrow. So if you are not for the mask, stay steadfast, but understand these are waters that we have to navigate. And I weigh the evidence always. And the situation is, you say, why did I abstain? Because I cannot be in conflict with the law, okay? The law says what it says. And I'm just saying that in order to move forward, if we don't like the laws, then we need to change the laws. So if we're going to re-entertain a vote, as much as it pains me to do it, I'm more interested in getting these kids in school than I will ever be about sitting on the sideline. Just remember, this is aimed at pitting people against people, and it's never good for us. It's never good for this country. Patience, persistence, and politeness.
It's those that suffer right there, these little.
Unfortunately, I don't have a choice, because we can sit here until the year 2027 or whatever, and we're never going to get off of that wheel.
So I will entertain my motion again. Going back in masked, following Virginia law, and regards to legal counsel, mask in. Do I have a second? Roll call, please.
Ms. Couch? Aye. Mr. Hopkins?
No,
Mr. Jones? Ms. Page?
Aye.
Ms. Winter?
Abstain.
So the vote is as Ms. Byram.
The vote is 3 yes votes, no vote. 3 yes votes, 1 no vote, and 1 abstention.
Thank you. That is the vote. All right. If there is no other business,
and just to clean it up, let's put it in the minutes at least that this is a replacement for the mask resolution that was passed a week ago. Because we can't have two different things. Okay, and with that,
Okay, thank you. Duly noted, Mr. Hopkins. So at this time, I will adjourn this meeting.
Why not give us parents a choice to opt out?
That's what I want to know. 8 hours.
You're still following the guidelines and laws. Why not give us as parents a